Uh, Welcome. So with me today is Professor Lorin Geitner. He's adjunct professor at Chapman University, and as well as he's adjunct professor at Brandman University. And I have some questions from him regarding the education in Pakistan. So let's ask from him what are my questions and what is his intake about those things. Sir, my first question from you is uh, what should be the characteristics of a good student in life as per your experience?
In the classroom, I would say that it's a matter of uh, keeping up with the assignments,
Mhm.
um, attending class regularly. If there's anything in the material, ask questions. I don't know how many times I've had students uh, get upset because they didn't understand something, but the other first time that I find out about it is in the student evaluation. So if there's something that you can't quite grapple with, talk to your professor or send him an email. We're here, we are, in spite of what students think, we do not really like to give people low grades. It's much easier for me to give people a good grade. But, you know, you don't do what I do for a living, but for the fact that it feels like a calling to help people be more knowledgeable. So don't be intimidated by your professor. See your professor as a resource and uh, key into that. So, and see, what was the rest of the question here? Okay, as for how to be a good student in life, well, that's a much broader question. But let me paraphrase the great philosopher Seneca, who said that words to the effect that no day goes to loss. If you, so long as you have learned something or come to some new insight, the way that you become a truly knowledgeable person
Ah,
is to learn one thing every
wow,
day.
very good. So told me about the importance of asking questions, right? So people usually do not understand how to ask. Any advice?
Pretty straightforward. Shoot an email, or if you are actually in a physical classroom, come up to the professor after class. In fact, I like that. That shows me that you are engaged and that you're interested. Also, that's often, speaking both for myself and for professors uh, as a whole, there's always the problem that to be a professor, by the time you're my age, you aren't in touch with likely in touch with the popular culture or the popular understanding that the students represent. Well, according to Aristotle's rhetoric, the first tool of communication is to understand where the other person is coming from. How do we as professors figure out what things are kind of odd or strange or obscure to a given student? Have students ask questions. I understood X, I understood Y, but this thing threw me. Good. Not only does that give me the opportunity to confirm that you are engaged and interested, not only does it give me the chance to help you with your understanding, it also alerts me that other students may be struggling with the same thing.
Uh, uh, so this is a common question. Like professors in USA answers their emails.
Okay, you're asking if we make a point of answering emails. I can't speak for all professors, but I try to be pretty consistent with that. Sometimes I might miss the odd email here or there. I try not to let that happen. But yes, that's one of the many important and valuable tools of communication that we have now. Also, I always allow my students to contact me, by appointment via Zoom if that's more comfortable to them. But we now have so many different ways to communicate. You can speak to the professor before class, you can speak to the professor after class, you can email the professor, you can Zoom the professor. Why don't more people make use of these opportunities?
Wow, wonderful.
Students 18 to 24. The biggest thing that I notice is that a lot of students seem to have been able to get through high school without learning how to write a properly structured college paper. And a lot of them seem to think that they can make broad statements of truth without citing sources, which is why, and if you like, I can send you a copy. I ultimately ended up creating a rubric for papers where I set out exactly what I'm expecting for my students to do in their introduction, in the development, and their conclusion. And I set out exactly how many points each one counts for. Now, to the good, that means that by the end of the semester, most of my students are writing pretty consistently A and B papers, but there's always some that struggle with very simple things like, well, what kind of paper you're going to write. You need to put that in the introduction. Are you analyzing? Are you critiquing? Are you synthesizing works? What is your methodology? What aspects of the given works are you going to address in what order? Um, now, to the good, most of my students, by use of my rubric, are writing pretty good papers by the end of the semester, but some of them really, really struggle. And yeah, honestly, I have to wonder what they're taught up through high school when it comes to what constitutes a good scholarly um, paper for class.
Wow, wonderful. Like, what makes them good?
What made them good? That's very different. Now, as I say, you need to be disciplined. You need to keep up with the right readings. You need to, if there's anything that's obscure or unclear, you need to follow up with the professor. You need to be thoughtful. You need to be able to support your points. Um, you can't write in broad generalities in academic comes up every so often is I have students that will write broad absolute statements. I think that's because of the popular discourse. We see politicians or public figures making broad absolute statements, and that might be fine in the context of politics um, or popular arts, but in academia, that's actually, it's weaker to write an absolute statement than to carefully qualify your statement. As I tell my students, and this might be a little bit dry, but academic humor, but I tell them that in academia, there's probably only one absolute statement that really stands up to examination. And it is this: you should absolutely never make absolute statements.
Wow, 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 wonderful, wonderful. So my next question is social media a good source for learning or students should read books?
Interesting question. I think you have a false dichotomy there. I don't think it's either or. I keep up on social media. I read books all the time. It's part of my lifestyle. I have a Kobo ebook reader, and I've been told that apparently people recognize me when in downtown Fullerton, where I live, because they see me walking along, and I always have it in my hand. But point that I'm trying to get at, social media. Um, Social media can be a good source for learning, but it depends upon who you cultivate. If you, word of advice there, if you have taken a class with a professor and you really enjoyed it, uh, you don't want to do this during the class, but you know what? I I totally love it if a student decides to follow me on social media. It means that I've made an impact on them. So the point then is that social media can be a good source, but only if you cultivate thoughtful, intelligent, and educated people to follow on social media. In terms of, thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your time